Were you reluctant to go this way? You know, I see you at occasional UFO conferences. Yeah. You're always so erudite and careful about your research and everything. And it would seem to me that if you were to tell your colleagues, hey, I'm researching whether UFOs are demonic. Well, let's explore that for a second, because it sort of becomes an underlying theme in the book, is that the possibility that these agents and this agency that was investigating this stuff had somehow tried to establish communication, had opened some sort of a door, a portal, a window, and that things came in and that shouldn't have come in. Why don't you talk about that in an overall sense, and then we'll get into some specifics.
Yeah, sure. This was basically the idea that, you know, rather than sort of nuts and bolts spacecraft landing, as we said, on the White House lawn, the idea was that people, literally within the Defense Department, were sort of consulting ancient texts and books on demonology and using archaic rites and rituals to quite literally summon up these entities that, you know, the UFO research community calls the Greys. You know, they weren't trying to contact them by radio or whatever, you know, radio waves or anything like that. It was literally, you know, invoking and using ancient rites and rituals. And the story was, you know, that they didn't necessarily come through in nuts and bolts craft. The group actually came to believe over time that, you know, this was more of like a hologram type thing, that these weren't sort of flesh and blood entities. They were almost like a demonic intelligence, if you like, that in some cases weren't even sort of, you know, had physical form, although they could manifest physically in some respects, that the group believed. So in other words, the idea was that this portal was opened. Now, by portal, you know, in simplistic terms, we're talking about a gateway to another realm that some people would quite possibly correctly, you know, would suggest was like another dimension, but the group concluded it was literally like a doorway or portal to hell, and allowed these entities to come through in like a deceptive mode of extraterrestrials. And then it was a case of, well, you know, we can actually learn quite a bit if we can harness their powers, but should we try it? Can we actually take on the forces of hell in some sort of Faustian pact? That was literally the way it was looked at. But again, you know, based on belief systems, one man's alien is another man's demon. You know, that is the sort of the basic background as to how and why they were looking at this. It was a case of trying to contact these entities, open doorways, and then try and militarize any powers or skills that might be developed from liaising with these entities.
Now, Ray, your friend Ray, Anglican priest that he is, said that there is some sort of a focus on Christianity as opposed to other kinds of religion from whoever these entities are. Why don't you go explain that to us?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ray's done a lot of research into this area, and certainly, you know, this is one of the things that why there was so much research done for the book. You know, it covered 4 years, because I'll be the first to admit, you know, I'm not a particularly religious person. You know, I don't have any problem with what people believe at a religious level, but, you know, not being someone who sort of has that background, it required a lot of research. And so, you know, that's why the interviews were quite extensive for the book. And Ray basically has done a lot of research and found a number of cases where these sort of so-called alien entities, whatever they are, had made denials about Christianity when they were speaking to, you know, various abductees, contactees, whoever, and claiming, you know, that Christianity isn't really the truth behind what's going on. And what Ray found was that in a number of cases it was always Christianity that was targeted rather than any other religions. It was always that one that was being criticized, and Ray kind of perceived it as being the, you know, as he saw it, sort of the two true forces, good and evil, you know, the Christian belief system, and, you know, the minions of Satan squaring up against each other. And he felt that the denial of Christianity by these entities was evidence that they're probably not extraterrestrial, because they were focusing on just one religion.
Okay, we're getting into the good stuff now with Nick Redfern, talking about a secret government group that was studying demons disguised as ETs.